Has anyone ever suggested that maybe you're being too picky in your dating? I've had people ask me, well, do you think maybe the reason you're still single is because you're too picky? So we're going to talk about what is too picky in dating on this episode of One-Derful Life. Hi, I'm Mary Dittman. I'm an award-winning business teacher on the collegiate level and the creator of College on Fleek and One-Derful Life. What is One-Derful Life? Well, I always wanted to get married and have a family, and it never worked out for me. I'm well over 40, and I'm still single, and I don't have any children, and for many years, this was a real source of sorrow and deep sadness for me. And at one point, I even felt like I'm just not going to be happy if I'm single. But then I figured out that I better get happy and I better make peace with singleness, because if it didn't change, I wanted to be able to enjoy my life. And so I've learned how to have a great life and be happy and be peaceful, not because I'm single, but while I'm single. Some women get to a place where they're like, I don't need a man. I don't want anybody. I'd just rather be alone. And I don't feel that way. I would prefer a relationship, but I don't have one. And if I never do, I know that I will still be happy and peaceful. And that's what One-Derful Life is about. Now, if you visit wonderfullife.com, you can read my blog and see past episodes of the show, as well as listen to the podcast version of the show. And we have a lot of great tips and information there to help you connect. And we'd always love to hear from you in the comments below, or certainly on the website, because this is a tribe. This is a place where you know that you are not alone. And hey, maybe soon your Boaz will come along and you will join a different tribe. But while you're single, if you are wondering how to be happy and peaceful in your singleness, join us here at One-Derful Life. One of the questions that I've been asked many times over the years has been, do you think maybe you're single because you're too picky? And in my case, I can say the opposite is true. I'm probably single because I spent a lot of years not being picky enough. I wasn't being picky, and I would pretty much go out on a first date with almost anybody who would ask, because I felt like, well, dating is a numbers game. So you have to go out with a bunch of people, you have to meet a bunch of different people, and, see what works. That is incorrect. That is like saying you're going to go to the grocery store and you are just going to blindly open up a bag and start throwing peaches or lemons or apples or bananas in the bag, and just hope you come up with something good by the time you get home after you've already paid for them. And you know what? This is actually a really great example, because the same is true in dating. It does cost you something. It costs your time. It costs your energy. As a woman, it may not cost you, the price of dinner or coffee or whatnot, but it does cost you your time and your energy, and you need to, put on your makeup and curl your hair and drive to wherever you're going to meet this person. An emotional toll where you get your hopes up and then you realize it's not a good fit. When you go to the grocery store, you don't just blindly, put a bunch of fruit into a bag and hope that it works out okay. No, you inspect your fruit. Yesterday I was at the grocery store, and I was squeezing things and looking at them and, thumping stuff, which I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be listening for when I thump the fruit. But anyway, we're picky when we're buying our food. And so, yes, you do want to be picky when you're dating. Now, we're going to take a look at what's the difference between being picky that would keep you single and having a standard. I'm going to encourage you to have a standard. Now, when I raised my standards for dating, I went on way fewer dates. And see, that kind of bothered me because of my numbers game theory. But I also stopped wasting time and getting into these conversations with myself or with my friends about, well, maybe it's not as bad as I think. And your standards are up to you. When you're in your 20s, for example, it's really kind of romantic to start off with nothing and build from there. I teach at a university and I see my students and, they graduate college and get married and it's kind of romantic. They're starting out, they don't have anything. But when you're over 40, for me, that does not sound fun. I do not want to get into a relationship with a man who's starting over, meaning he's coming out of bankruptcy, he just got out of a messy divorce, he's changing careers, he's gone back to college. For me, that is not fun and romantic. That is scary and stressful. I was sharing with a couple of my girlfriends one time that I had gone out a couple of times with a very nice man, just a real sweetheart, and he was like a lineman for the power company. But at this point, he wasn't making very good money, and I know those guys can make good money, but he wasn't. And I also felt like we weren't compatible in terms of our career. And when I pictured myself at a Christmas party, for example, introducing him, and I thought, well, someone's going to ask him, well, what do you do? And he's going to say, I work on the power lines. And I felt kind of snobby, but I was just sharing with a couple of my girlfriends, and actually both of them said, well, yeah, you should be more open-minded. And yet, they're both married to executives, and one of them has a PhD. So my girlfriends were telling me I was being too picky, and yet neither one of them is married to someone who's in a line-level job. So, that's up to you. Now, if you feel like you would be fine with that, then okay, set your own standard, okay? But if you're gonna have a standard, then don't waste your time on people who don't meet the standard. So let's look at what would a standard be versus just being picky. One standard would be that you only date men who are in a stable career and they are committed to being a provider. That's a standard. Picky is saying, well, I'll only date a professional athlete and he has to be on a good team and that team has to have made it to the playoffs within the last 3 years. That's picky. It's okay to have a standard that says, this is what I'm looking for. I'll just tell you, for me personally, there's a verse in the Bible that says, do not be unequally yoked. Now, it's talking about your faith, but I believe that unequally yoked applies to a lot of things. And what that is referring to, by the way, is when you use a yoke to pair together two oxen. Oxes? Yep. Two oxes, and you put them together to usually pull a plow. If they are unequally yoked and you have one ox who's either going too fast or maybe is significantly bigger than the other ox, then you'll get an uneven plow and the work won't get done correctly. Plus, the animal can get fatigued, either one of them. So you want to have oxen in the yoke that are compatible and comparable. And you need to figure out what those things are for you. For me, it is things like profession and income and values with respect to finances and giving and saving. Those are important to me. But I have a standard, which is I only date men who are in a stable career, not a job, a career, who are committed to being providers. That's my standard. Now, picky would be if I said, well, I won't date anyone unless they make $1 million a year. Okay, well, that's picky. Plus, you're going to really limit your dating pool severely. By the way, some women are totally fine with a man who doesn't work. Again, it's your standard. For me, I want to be with a man who has a successful, stable career. And let me tell you, men don't respect other men who don't work. I'm not talking about men who are legitimately retired. Okay, like they've worked their career and they are legitimately retired. That's different. I'm talking about men, especially in their 40s and 50s, who just aren't working. Those are your prime earning years. And if a man doesn't work then, you better be prepared to be the breadwinner. Another standard for me, he must be kind and respectful. There's a fantastic book I recommend that you read called Love Factually by Dr. Dwayna Welch. Fantastic book, and she really goes into the evolutionary psychology and the science behind attraction. It's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it. And one of the things that she says in there is that the minimum requirement to be in a relationship with anybody is that they need to be kind and they must be respectful. So yeah, you need to be picky about that. That's a good standard to have. This man must be kind and he must be respectful. Okay, now picky would be, he has to bring me roses on every date. If he doesn't send me flowers once a week, I don't think I want him. Okay, well that's picky. Look at, is he kind to you and others? Is he respectful towards you and others? That is a good standard to have, and keep it high and don't lower it. Another standard I have, he has to love me, and then he has to convince me that he loves me and that he's going to protect me. And by the way, that standard is very much in line with what a properly functioning male wants to do. Men, if they love you, they want you to know that they love you, they want you to know that they're committed to you, and they want to protect you. So this is not an unreasonable standard that a man can't attain. But that for me is a standard. He has to love me. I need to really believe he loves me, not just words, that he's committed and that he will protect me. That's a standard. Picky would be, well, he has to be 6'4" or taller, and he has to have a full head of hair and blue eyes. Because if you've decided I'm not going to date anyone who's shorter than 6'4", or who's got a receding hairline, or he shaves his head bald because he was losing his hair, or he wears glasses, or whatever the thing is, that's picky. Okay, that's not about his character. Loves you, is committed to you, and will protect you. Those things are value-based, and they're about who he is as a man. So I hope you see the difference here, that having a standard is about respect for yourself, and also men who don't meet that standard, just let them go, okay? Just don't waste their time. Also, men will frequently be able to tell when they're not living up to your expectations, and that makes them feel like a failure, and no man wants to feel that way. So if your standard is, I want to be with someone who has reached a certain level in his career, don't date men who haven't reached that, because they're always going to feel like they're not good enough for you, and you're not doing them a favor by continuing to see them. Now when people ask me, are you too picky? I'll tell them, well, let me tell you what I'm looking for, and you tell me if I'm too picky. I want a man with a stable career who can be a provider. I'm not looking to stop working, okay? I have no intention of ever quitting work. I love to work. So I want a man who can provide for me. He won't have to, but I want to know he can. So I want a man who's in a stable, successful career, who can be a provider. He must be kind to me and respectful of me. And he has to love me and be committed to me and protect me. Okay, if that's too picky, tell me which one of those I shouldn't stick to. Okay, I should pick a man who doesn't respect me? I should pick a man who can't provide? So you get clear on your standards and you'll be able to address the picky question with authenticity. Now when people say to me, well, do you think you're too picky? No, I'm not. As Dr. Phil said one time, look, I have a standard. Either you meet it or you don't. It's not personal. I did write a blog on how you need to be picky, and you can read that blog at wonderfullife.com. I'd love to hear from you in the comments and let me know, have you ever been accused of being too picky, or do you think you're too picky? And share with me what it is that you think about being picky, or anything that you're struggling with that you'd like to hear more about. Wonderful Life is not a monologue, it's a dialogue. So I want to hear from you. And as always, you can connect with us at wonderfullife.com. Next week, join us because we're going to talk about how you can go out and do stuff by yourself without feeling like a loser. So join us next time on Wonderful Life.